Okay, they say if you say his name 5 times in the mirror, he'll come and get you. So here it goes. Candyman, 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 Candyman. Nothing. Welcome to this month's horror talk. Stick around.
Why, hello there YouTube, and welcome to this month's horror talk. So, this is the first horror talk of 2019, because last month we had Halloween in January. So, yes, horror talk is back, and this month's discussion, of course, is on the Candyman franchise. So, Candyman, it has been... Well, this is a horror franchise that has only 3 films made to it, and and little do people know that it is actually based on a short story. So, where did all this happen and start? Well, let's get into the discussion then. So, it all started in the 70s. Horror author Clive Barker wrote an anthology book series called The Book of Blood. He released many short stories within that book, and had over 5 volumes. In volume 5, he had a short story published called The Forbidden, or known in America as Into the Flesh. This was a short story about a young woman called Helen who worked at a university studying urban legends and myths. She came across one that was called the Candyman. So, the Candyman. This story, The Forbidden, was set in Liverpool, England, Clive Barker's home city, and the Candyman was described as a man with white pale skin, frizzy blonde hair, a hook, and a multicoloured coat. Basically, picture Colin Baker's 6th incarnation of the Doctor, Doctor Who, but with a hook. That's how I pictured it. So yeah, a lot of you didn't know that the original short story, The Forbidden, is actually set in Liverpool. It's British, and Candyman is how I've just described him. Yeah, so that's what happened in The Forbidden, in Clive Barker's Book of Blood. So in 1992, filmmaker Bernard Rose horror filmmaker Bernard Rose wanted to adapt this short story into a horror film, and with the permission of Clive Barker, I'm assuming he had some involvement in the filmmaking because, well, yeah, he was an executive producer of the film. Yeah, Clive Barker, gave the story, The Forbidden, a full approval for a film. The film, of course, the book, The Forbidden, got adapted into the film Candyman. It was written and directed by Bernard Rose, or screenplay written by Bernard Rose, and it starred Virginia Madsen, Tony Todd, Xander Berkeley, and Casey Lemons. Yes, now the short story and the film, of course, have big differences. So first of all, the setting of the film is set in Chicago, America, and Candyman is played by Tony Todd. In this, Bernard Rose thought, hey, we've had Michael, we've had Jason, we've had Freddy, they've all been white male antagonists. Let's have a for once, let's change it round. Let's have a black male antagonist. And to be fair, I didn't really think much about that. I didn't really think anything of it at all. Because I saw the film before I read the short story, The Forbidden. In that role was Tony Todd. And I have to say, he was absolutely brilliant in this. You know, the way he spoke and the way he was creepy and that. It was just a very unsettling character that he portrayed in that film. Of course, we don't see Candyman until like, I don't know, half an hour or 45 minutes or so into the film. Let's just say it's a build-up worth waiting for. So, Virginia Madsen plays Helen in this film. Little of them knowing that Virginia Madsen was going to play Helen's friend, and Bernard Rose's wife was meant to play Helen, but she fell pregnant, so instead of messing around trying to recast someone, Virginia Madsen stepped in as Helen, and the new role went to another actress. I can't remember her name now, but still, to me it worked, and I liked the film. It was a great film. It was, beautifully made in this, this one. Like Boogey Man Ben said to me, Candyman is a beautifully made horror film, and it is. I mean, it's got a nice soundtrack, like a nice, gentle theme, and it gets like darker, more serious than that. Excuse me. But yes, it was, dark and gloomy and very gothic. Candyman in this, in the short story The Forbidden, bits they stay true to is the hook for a hand and his ribcage exposed with bees everywhere. Now the bees, in the film were explained that he was stung to death by bees. We don't find much out about his origin until the second film, which we'll get to in a moment. But this film, Tony Todd just gave off a great performance in this one as the killer. And, the parts that... There's one scene, which I'm sure everyone knows from the film, where Helen is in a car park and we hear Candyman call her name, going, Helen. And then he goes, be my victim. I don't know how he does it, but he has a very, unique voice. Excuse me. And, God, I've got a frog in my throat. The bit where he's, in the car park saying, be my victim. I don't know, but first time around watching that as a kid, I found it very, very unsettling and very dark and creepy, which, for a horror film should work. What else did I enjoy about this film? Oh yeah, there was one of my favourite kills in the film was when Helen was in the mental hospital and the psychiatrist was trying to assure her that there is no such thing as the Candyman, and then he hooks him and kills him. I like that kill in it. Yes. And of course, as I forgot to mention, Candyman gets summoned by his name being chanted 5 times in the mirror. If you say Candyman 5 times in the mirror, then he appears and gets you. In the film, people believe, as a challenge or something, they should say his name 5 times in the mirror. And of course, that's when he appears behind. We see this in the film Candyman. It's the first time we see him in the film when we go back to a young couple. The guy played by Sam Raimi's brother, Ted Raimi, and she says his name 5 times in the mirror, and then he gets her. don't say his name 5 times in the mirror if you don't want him to get you. Why 5 times in the mirror? Well, I don't get the whole... Well, I didn't get the whole thing till, like, the 3rd film, I think, when they say that he was being stung to death, and when he was getting stung to death they were calling him Candyman, and upon the 5th time they called him that, he died. So that's like, oh, that's kind of plausible. So yes, the film Candyman. So basically Helen says his name 5 times in the mirror and he wants her, but he likes to toy with her. He's like the Boogey Man almost. And yeah, there's one part in it though. There's one part where there are bees, of course, and you know, Candyman has bees in his mouth. Now, this was done in 1992, so CGI wasn't as good as it is now, but back then, Tony Todd actually had to put real bees in his mouth, and he did. He stayed so calm. I don't know how he did it, but he stayed extremely calm. Had a guard in his mouth so he didn't swallow any, but yeah, he had some bees in his mouth and around him and that. Now, these bees were less than 12 hours old, so I don't think they could sting just yet. But yeah, they were, you know, about 12 hours old. And Virginia Madsen, she stated that she's allergic to bees. But Bernard Rose thought, no, I think she's just trying to get out of this scene filming it. But they did have an ambulance on standby in case anything did happen. I think Tony Todd got away with a few stings. But still, that's just dedication right there. For the film. So yeah, this first film takes place in Chicago, in an apartment block, or in England, a block of flats. Yeah, so huge difference between the Forbidden and the film adaptation, Candyman. You know, there's a huge difference in that between it all. But yeah, that just shows Clive Barker Clive Barker, I find that his creations are so good, you know, like the Cenobites and those creatures from the Midnight Meat Train. Candyman is one of his other fine creations, I think, too. So yeah, Candyman. The film, of course, ends where Helen succumbs to Candyman's torture and she dies. Actually, she dies saving a baby. Because in the film, Candyman kidnaps a baby. There's another bit where Helen blacks out and she's framed for a murder she committed in an apartment with a single mother. But, yeah, she's arrested and then put in a mental hospital. And, yeah, the baby's missing and no one knows where it is. Now, I just wonder, how did Candyman... You know, because this is something that Mother Mayhem pointed out in her Candyman review. She said, how did Candyman keep a baby alive for like 2 days, is it? Well, he kept the baby alive for a while, and yeah. Of course, the film ends where Helen saves the baby from a burning fire, which the crowd outside are doing. And yeah, Helen finally becomes Candyman's victim. Of course, in this film, Helen's husband, she discovers that he's been having an affair and cheating on her, and yeah, at the end he wishes he could have done things differently and actually cries and says Helen 5 times in the mirror, and Helen then appears with the hook and gets him. So yeah, very bleak ending, but still, I just loved the music in that film. You know, that do-do-do-do, do-do, do-do, do-do-do-do, do-do, you know what I mean, the theme. I just like that theme. It's so beautiful yet dark and unsettling, and yeah, you know, Candyman is definitely one of those great horror films out there. You know, I mean, I'm not scared of it now, I'm completely immune to it, but upon first watching I did find it very unsettling, and for a 14-year-old seeing the film, I found it quite scary, and that. Yeah, so 1992 Candyman. So in the rankings of the Candyman films, I put the first film, Candyman, at number 1 because it is by far the best one. So yeah, there were sequels to this film made because, like I said, horror franchise. Now the sequels I didn't actually watch till very recently. yeah. I found Candyman, the second instalment, Farewell to the Flesh, on Netflix. So yes, Farewell to the Flesh. Now, this sequel, like I say, I didn't watch the sequels until recently because I watched them for like research to do this discussion. In the second one, we go to New Orleans and we actually find out a bit of his origin story. This came out for 3 years later. Let me just check a moment. Yeah, 1995. And this one, it starred Tony Todd. Again, he returned for the sequel. And it had Kelly Rowan and Timothy Carhart and Veronica Cartwright. In the film, one of the characters, what's his name? Professor Philip Purcell or something, who was in the first film, who was a professor as well at this university Helen worked on her husband. He actually came back in the opening scene of the second film, and he's doing a book tour and signing books or what have you. But yeah, he gets killed in this, and yeah. So the second film, we have antagonist Annie, and we find out a bit more of Candyman's origin story in this. We find out that Candyman's real name is Daniel Robitelli, who, of course, in the first film it was explained that he was the son of a slave, and he fell in love with a white rich man's daughter, and with it being the 19th century, he didn't approve of their relationship, so that's when he sent an angry mob to chase him out of the town. And what they did was cut off his hand, replaced it with a hook, smeared honey all over his body, and had the bees sting him to death. And I've already explained the 5-time chant thing. So yeah, very bleak. But we find out more about him, how he became Candyman, what his motivation is. So this sequel, it was okay. It wasn't as good as the first one, but still it was a watchable film, and I enjoyed watching it. I don't know if I'd watch it again anytime soon. Like I say, this follows protagonist Annie, played by Kelly Rowan, and she becomes like the next victim of the Candyman. Yes, and she comes across gangs and that in the film, and yeah, this is set in New Orleans as well, the jazz capital of the world, as I like to say. Yeah, and we get a bit of history from Candyman. So we find out that, well, he kind of does have a justifiable motive. I mean, would you be a pissed off ghost if someone did that to you? An angry mob smearing honey all over you, leaving you to be stung by the bees? So yes, that film, like I say, came out in 1995. Now, with this one not being as successful as the first one, in fact, I think it was a total bust, because they did make a third film for this, but in the third instalment it was straight to video, or DVD. In 1999, oh, and before we get to that, I rank Candyman Farewell to the Flesh in second place, number 2. So, yeah, Candyman Day of the Dead. So, this third film had no theatrical release. It was straight to video. This one was directed by Tori Meyer. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and the second film was directed by Bill Condon. The third film was directed by Tori Meyer, if I'm pronouncing that right, and it starred Tony Todd, Donna E. Ericho or whatever. I'm butchering the name here. So this third installment, which I watched recently, several years later, it follows a young woman called Caroline McKeever, who is the granddaughter of Daniel Robitelli. Robitelli. I'm getting his name muggled now. You know what I mean, Candyman. She is the descendant of his, and again, Candyman gains an obsession with her, and it's in this time it's taking place in hang on, I'm just looking at my phone seeing where it's all set. So the third film is set, I don't know where, it doesn't say, but this one, it takes place around the Mexican tradition. Of course, everyone knows around Halloween time, October time, Mexico do this thing called Days of the Dead, and that's why it's called Day of the Dead, because Candyman's around and it's the Days of the Dead. So in this we see Candyman back again, and the only one back from the first film, from the previous films this time, is just Tony Todd. Excuse me. Tony Todd was great in this. I liked his performance as always as Candyman. One thing I did notice differently, he didn't have the brown leather coat on anymore. He had a black coat on, and the hook was changed slightly. But yeah, I thought his performance was still good, and that again, they do in all the films, say his name 5 times and he gets them and that. But this film, I think, was bad. It was awful. I'm sorry, but I found this one boring. I did. I found it boring, kind of predictable and that. Tony Todd, there was nothing wrong with him at all. He was great in this, as always, but this film, I was struggling in the middle act to keep watching, but I thought I need to keep watching so I can do this discussion. And let me just say, the series went from like there and went all the way down from there. This is like Candyman, this is like Farewell to the Flesh, and this is Day of the Dead. And this film is about 20 years old now. It's, yeah, nearly 20 years old, and yeah, I kind of see why it was straight to DVD, and yeah, I just thought, I would have been happy with just 2 films in this. The third film, yeah, like I say, I don't recommend it. Even Boogey Man Ben, he's seen this and he said it's not that good and unwatchable, and I have to agree with him on this. But yeah, like I say, I was so bored with this film, I kind of sort of forgot about a majority of the plot. Again, we get his whole backstory talked about and that, and his Candyman's descendant, what's her name again? Caroline. See, I find this so forgettable. I'm having to look up some notes again on my phone about this. So yeah, it was released on July 9th, 1999, and yeah, it just was not that good. And yeah, I just think Tony Todd, he's a great horror actor. He has definitely left his stamp on ever, and in the slasher world, I think he'll always be known for being Candyman. But yeah, I just don't think that the sequels were as good. Now, yeah, they did announce that the franchise is gonna get rebooted by Jordan Peele, and we all know Jordan Peele for Get Out and another upcoming horror, Us. But then we found out that it's not going to be a reboot necessarily, it's going to be a sequel. Now, if it's going to be a sequel, I hope that this will do the original justice. In fact, I would be happy with this film being a sequel to just the first film from 1992. You know, forget about the other two, just the first film. Do the Halloween thing to it. It'll be the 4th installment of the franchise. Up to now, it's in development, and we don't know much about it other than Jordan Peele is going to be having some involvement as the producer. Maybe director, I don't know. I haven't really looked into that much. I should have done. But all I know is Jordan Peele is going to have involvement in it. For a comedic actor, he really knows his horror. You know, because he's really proved himself in that with Get Out, and I like what I've seen in Us, and that. Yeah, and also it's not been confirmed, but I'm hoping it will be. I really hope we get to see Tony Todd come back in this. I mean, yeah, he's aged a bit, he's gotten a bit bulgier, and that's throughout them years, and that, but he could still do it. I mean, he could still come back as Candyman. He came back for a cameo as the coroner in Final Destination 5 after his absence from the 2 previous films before that and stuff. I really hope we get to see him back in the role we all knew him for in horror, Candyman, with that deep, sinister voice. I'm trying to do the voice now. Yeah, I really like his voice in it. So dark and sinister yet soothing. And also, we can't forget the bees. The bees. Yeah, so... Yeah, Candyman, Days of the Dead. As there's 3 films in this. I'm going to put it right at the bottom of my rankings. So, basically, yeah. In 3rd place, Day of the Dead. 2nd place, Farewell to the Flesh. Number 1, the original is the best. So yeah, basically, the franchise didn't get any better as the sequels went on, and that's probably why they haven't done one in the last 20 years. But I really hope. But you know, Jordan Peele, I'm confident he knows what he's doing, and he will do something with this series and make it good. I really hope so. But for now, we just have the 3 films, you know, the trilogy. So. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say about the Candyman franchise. I really wish I could say more about it, but like I say, the first one is the best one. The sequels I don't care much for. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this month's Horror Talk. So yeah, let me know down in the comments below. Have you seen Candyman? What is your favourite moments in the franchise? What's your favourite film? Let me know all that down in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and to hit that notification bell. All of my social media links, my Facebook group, the Random Horror Madhouse, my Twitter, my Instagram, they're all linked down below, so you can check them all out, along with my other channels that I have as well down below, because I have a main channel, Random TV. I have a Doctor Who themed channel as well, for Doctor Who lovers, because I do love that show. Yeah, okay, so enough rambling from me. So yeah, that's it for this month's Horror Talk. So next month I will be doing another discussion. Not quite sure which yet, but I will get to it. So yeah, until next time, don't have nightmares.